Sir, I think my job is made a lot much simpler because my leader has really answered for me. But I'll quickly go through it. Ma, you said what particularly distinguishes me from others, because I've talked about leadership generally. I'll give you one example, then I'll tie it up. When I became president of the Senate, I came at a time it was believed that being president of the Senate is a matter of trial and error. The Senate was deeply in crisis. And it was such a situation that even at the age I came on board, nobody believed I was going to survive. But through consensus building, I gained the confidence of my colleagues, and we stabilized the Senate. And since after me, no president of the Senate has been removed from office. I want to say, just like Ndabawa said, even while I was SGF, that government, you can quote me, was most cohesive. That government, there was no issue of anybody running against the other or whatever, because it was. And I never had any exchange of words with anybody. I was able to hold the team, build consensus, focus on what mattered, and we delivered. The special strength I have as a leader is building consensus. Because all over the world, to build a nation requires a consensus builder. And this is much more so demanding in a multi-ethnic society like ours. If you don't secure the confidence of every component of the polity, you cannot have peace. I have tested this, it worked. My leader also mentioned, it's not necessarily just because when I was in office. When the situation in the nation came as a result of the absence of Yar'Adua, we rose to it. And with good men of great valor like him, we were able to raise 41 of us to rise to that occasion. Today we talk about security and insecurity. I am not talking about what I will do today because I'm running an election, but in 2018, I wrote an open letter to the president on this insecurity. That letter, if you go through it again today, I laid out what need be done. And if they were not done, the situation will escalate. That letter, you can take it today as a prophecy. I will build consensus. I will gain the confidence of every segment of this society. I will earn their trust. And with everybody comfortable with me, we will work together to rebuild Nigeria. That's how to build a nation.
That's good.
The most important thing and the most important step I must take as president is to remove mutual distrust. It's only when this is eliminated that I can rebuild the nation by reunifying all of us. Much of the problems we have today, and that was why I said from the beginning that here is a country in search of nationhood. It's because we do not agree on the structure we have. We do not agree on how we stay together. We have no agreement on our resource sharing formula. We have no agreement on our population. We have no agreement on the number of states, and all that, and all that, and all that. And when I talk about building consensus, I give two examples, because at times somebody will say, how will it work? How, apart from my personal experiences in the Senate, I know as a fact that during the independence, the pre-independence era, when the country was trying to come together to form a country, that the different groups have different reasons and different demands and different expectations from the union if it must be. And that was why in 1957, Nigeria was ready for independence, but the North said, no, we are not ready. And the processes stopped to get them ready. And in 1957, so that was 1957, the independence was also, the nation was also ready for independence. The minority tribes said, no, we cannot go into this union, because if we go into this union, the majority tribes will dominate us. The colonial masters also said, wait, let us address their worries. It was only when these worries were addressed through negotiations, constitutional conferences, meetings, that Nigeria now set out for independence. I also give one example after independence. After independence, there came a time that the Midwestern region now said, look, we want to be a region of our own. Because today, it appears impossible to reach a consensus on issues of creation of states. But a state, Midwestern region, was created under a democratic government. And it was acceptable across board. It went through the process. The North agreed to it, the South agreed to it, the West agreed to it, and constitutionally, they created the Midwestern region. It was because somebody provided leadership that enjoyed the trust of everybody. And they now agreed, and what was right was done in the interest of the nation. Now, the unique offering from me is consensus building. And that's the foundation and the strength of a nation builder, which the next question, my friend asked that, what will I do with the Constitutional Conference reports? I have had occasion to answer this question. And I will be more distinct. I midwifed it. And each time I look at my address to the conference, when the day was opened, it was a 2-minute address to introduce the president to address the conference. I feel so fulfilled. Because like he said, it took a painstaking process from setting up a prayer committee to determine the structure of the conference, then constituting the conference, inaugurating the conference, and seeing the conference walk through. One other point you didn't make is that at a time when the conference time was up, they needed extension.
Yeah.
And they went about it that they must have extension, and I said, no, you can't have extension. We must finish within time. And after going forth and back, even to the president stood by me that the conference will not have any extension because the financial implication we would not explain. And I'm giving this example because there is no part of the conference, but one thing he confirmed, and I can say to anybody, if I ever, or president, or anybody in government, because we made sure we built a wall around them and set them on to run themselves independent of government. Nobody interfered with whatever they are doing. Their finances, their operations, their everything, nobody interfered. Now, if you ask me what I will do with that report again, I will present it to the Nigerian public. Whatever they want to do with it, they will do. But I give you one instance. Many things have changed from the mood of that time to this time. Because this government had brought so many ugly sides of this nation. Now, these ugly sides were not contemplated during that conference. So if you now ram the conference on the people, it will backfire. And I give you one instance. In that conference, if you are to implement that conference the way it is, that conference recommended about 46 states in all. Additional states were to be created. So bringing the total number of states to 46 states. Already the way the economy had gone, the country is collapsing, the states are not viable, you can't create more. So there are many things you need to review. So for me, I will bring back the conference report to the Nigerian people. And they will review it, and we will now look for what is good, cogent, and important to address the situations before us. and will flow with it under a consensus. Now, my friend asked, I think I can answer it with the other. He asked about the restiveness across the country. What will I do about the restiveness and youth unemployment? Well, one good thing about this, because usually all the questions I have attempted them in summary when I made my speech. One thing about this is that the restiveness actually is connected to that unemployment. I was in Kaduna recently, and I told them that in the early 80s, a brother of mine, a small brother of mine, was working at the textile factory in Kakuri. And if you come to the railway station going to Kakuri early morning on a working day, you will see thousands of people. It will be like a market, people going to work. And today, that place is dead. That accounts for 70% of the insecurity in that environment.
That's true. And all over the country.
So, the economy has shrunk. The economy has collapsed. Of course, there is no opportunities for people to get engaged. And when we talk about employment, we also take it on the surface. The truth about employment and unemployment is that when somebody has an employment, what it means, he has a stake in that economy. His livelihood depends on it. He will have a reason to protect it. And when somebody, for any reason, has no stake in that society, he will have no reason to protect it. So whatever that goes wrong, what concerns him, what is life after all? However, I want to say, just like I gave the example of Niger Delta, I deliberately ran that example to show that it was not only, the militancy was not just criminality. It had its own economic component, it has its own political component. And the economic component of it manifested. When they were engaged, when they were trained and engaged, of course, the militancy disappeared. Proper engagement. So if you ask me what I will do about restiveness, I will categorize them because they are not the same. Agitations are politically motivated, and you can't treat them as criminals. You treat it as politically motivated agitations and address it politically. Again, it brings consensus. Again, it brings understanding. Again, it brings inclusiveness. Again, it brings expansion of the economy and political or public opportunities. If there are opportunities in the nation and it is reserved for one section or a few, then the others, one way or the other, will have to fight society. So I will segregate them. Political agitations will be treated politically. And I can tell you the agitations in Southwest, like IPOB, Southwest is political, the agitation in Southeast is political, and all that. Once you attack it from the foundation, you get a different answer. 2, the second are the bandits. Banditry is purely economic. The banditry in Zamfara, the banditry in Kaduna, the banditry in Sokoto, and part of Niger. They are purely economic. Now, we have allowed, due to unemployment, we have allowed our youth to now realize and discover that, before you hear about armed robbery. Yeah. Now, the jobless people have discovered that armed robbery is not profitable enough. That kidnapping is now more, it delivers more dividend. And people now go to it. So, banditry is largely economic. I had an opportunity before my late elder statesman, Ahmed Joda. Ahmed Joda was telling me how they planned the economy and build universities those days. He said they won't set up any university without having a plan on how many they will graduate and how they will be employed. And he said it was with the advent of the military that the first was Murtala. When he came, Murtala expanded the second generation university they wanted to do, and Obasanjo came and increased it. And today, it has become a political tool. You just wake up, you are building university, you are building this, You are building this, and you have no plan or where to put the products of that this thing. So, now, I can tell you, and at times when PDP people ask me like this, I said, I am PDP, and we know how we have done it. So it is simply returning to the magic of PDP. We strengthen the economy, we expand the economy, we rebase the economy, and the economy will accommodate much more people and give them a sense of livelihood. And if that is done, the banditry, the kidnapping, and all that can be managed. 2, there are other social vices like cultism, which now expands to the internet fraud and all that, having its own distance. These vices among the younger ones, you don't treat them ordinarily like ordinary criminals. You also have to you have to overhaul the educational system to nip it in the bud. And I have always maintained that the educational system, when I was, take for instance, when we were young, I know that you don't just, if you are leaving secondary school or primary school, you are not just aiming at the university. You are either planning to go to HSC, higher school certificate or something, or you are somehow planning to go to technical schools. So there were classes of educational system, educational opportunities that will spread the people when they come from primary school. And so that everybody doesn't hate towards the university. Today, everybody heads towards the university to buy certificate. Some are employable, some are not employable. And eventually, both the employable and the unemployable have no job. We'll overhaul the system, address it at the root, nip it in the bud, and it will spare society of the inconvenience. I can tell you again, it's a factor of leadership. So, criminals will be treated as criminals.
Good.
So I can tell you for sure that what to do is certainly clear. But I also want, because you linked this with unemployment, I want to make this point. Today, if we are still talking about unemployment and employment in the context of what we used to have, we are missing the point, and my government will not do so. The world is in transition. The world is transiting from the 3rd industrial revolution to the 4th industrial revolution. The economy of the world in the 21st century is going to be driven by knowledge, talent, and innovation. It's no longer going to be anybody waiting to be employed in a white-collar job and all that. And I have said clearly in my manifesto that I will build innovation hubs to help unleash the creativity of our young ones. And they will employ themselves. I will support that with venture capital. I will support them with technology, marketing, and startup businesses. We also create startup corridors for all those that can pick up something on their own. And I can tell you, Nigerians are talented, hardworking, and ready to work. And by the time we create the environment, you can agree with me that many will become employers of labor, and dignity of labor will be restored and respected. So, I'm clear about what to do. Well, one tricky question is, what will I do if my former boss is running in APC? I would say, like I said before, APC and PDP will march, and PDP will swallow APC. Well, specifically, it's not to my knowledge that he is contesting, because the official statement from his office disowned the people who bought the phone. So we can't talk about what does not exist. Then the unity of aspirants. How will my presidency treat the party, and what will be the status of women in my government? I will be quick about this. Well, I want you to know that the aspirants are beginning to talk to each other. But I hope that even the party will make it, after all, the zoning committee recommended consensus building. So the aspirants are talking to each other, but hopefully the party will facilitate more effort in that area. Then about the party. Well, I do remember that as a young person, I wasn't a politician, I was a young person. I experienced the party under NPN and PDP. And then the leader of the party is actually the boss of the government. Yes. If Shagari is attending a function where Akinloye will be attending, Shagari will come first. So that if Akinloye comes, he will stand up to receive him. It only changed when we came on board. And then the PDP president, Obasanjo, said he's now the leader of the party.
Your good friend.
I will be the servant of the party. I will restore the good old days. Then the status of women. The status of women in my government will simply be what it used to be in PDP government. And in the last PDP government, you agree with me that it was women, it was driven by women. But I will go further if I have my way. If I have my way, I will have a running mate that is a woman.
That's where she's going exactly.
If I have my way. How do I know? How will I contain insecurity? We do not have adequate personnel. I want to say that the problem is not personnel, and not also in 21st century. You'll be talking about technology now, not just personnel. But I agree with you in Egypt. In Egypt, because Egypt is a tourist country. You remember at the beginning of this whole insurgency, not insurgency.
Arab Spring.
No, that's not what I mean. After the Arab Spring, the whole of this, what is it called now? No, I'm talking.
I mean in Egypt.
Okay, Ibrahim, start coming. Okay. The first, in Egypt, after the Arab Spring, the government has stabilized. The first terror attack in Alexandria actually scared the terrorists, the tourists. And it was a threat to Egypt as a country because the economy will just go down.
Yeah.
So they had to do everything under the sun to stabilize the economy, and it means containing terrorism, particularly in that Alexandria axis. And they did, and that was the last time, that first instance was the last I heard of terrorism in Alexandria. And tourists, of course. So if you ask me what I will do, I am not sure the greater challenge is personnel. I think the greater challenge will be technology and commitment.
Mm-hmm. Commitment, yes.
I will commit to nipping it in the bud, doing the proper thing, then deploy technology to sabotage those who sabotage the process. The greatest disadvantage of more personnel is that you create more sabotage. And I think the major setback in fighting insecurity in Nigeria is sabotage. So we can trust that we deploy the appropriate technology and we will contain insecurity. Thank you.